In this video, I'll go over ACT problems that deal with probability. So probability is a value between 0 and 1 inclusive. Now it's defined as the number of favorable outcomes divided by the number of possible outcomes. So for example, if there's a pond with 4 salmon, 5 bluegill, and 10 tilapias contained in it, if each fish is equally likely to be caught, what is the probability of catching a bluegill? So first we find the number of favorable outcomes. So the favorable outcome is catching a bluegill. So that has a value of 5. Now the total possible outcomes is the total number of fish. So we have 4, 5, and 10 for a total of 19. So your probability of catching a bluegill is 5 out of 19. Now when you're dealing with the AND statement, the probability there is equal to the probability of A times the probability of B. So if there's more than one event occurring, you need to multiply the probability of each event together to get the probability that they all occur. So the probability of A and B is equal to the probability of A times the probability of B. So for example, the probability that a store will have free samples on a particular day is 0.3. The probability that it will rain that day is 0.1. What is the probability that the store will have free samples and it will rain that day? Okay, so we have two events. We can say event A is the store having free samples, and event B is going to rain that day. And all you need to do is multiply those two probabilities together. So 0.3 times 0.1, multiply those together, that gives you 0.03. So that's the probability on one day that the store will have free samples and that it'll rain. Now if you had 3 events and you wanted to know the probability of all 3 happening, then you need to multiply the probabilities of each of them together. And that is true for any number of events that you're dealing with. So it was 10 different events, you multiply all the probabilities, all 10 together. So now if you're dealing with the OR statement, the probability that one event or another will occur is equal to the probability of event A plus the probability of event B minus the probability of event A and B happening at the same time. So the formula, probability of A or B is equal to probability of A plus the probability B minus the probability of A and B. So for example, a used phone will have a 0.16 probability of having a scratch on the screen and 0.05 probability of having a non-working headphone jack and 0.01 probability of having both. What is the probability that a used phone will have a scratch on the screen or a non-working headphone jack? Okay, so our first event is a scratch on the screen, so that's 0.16. And our second event, event B, is the probability of a non-working headphone jack, and that's 0.05. And we need to subtract the probability of both happening at the same time, which is the 0.01. So you add up 0.16 plus 0.05 minus 0.01. And that gives you 0.2. So the probability of having a scratch on the screen or a non-working headphone jack is 0.2. Now I want to talk about odds. Odds 4. This is the ratio of favorable outcomes versus unfavorable outcomes. So for example, in a certain game there are 10 hidden items. 3 contain a cash prize and the rest do not. 1 is chosen at random. What are the odds for winning a cash prize? Okay, so instead of probability, we're trying to find the odds. So the odds of choosing a cash prize. So there's 3 that have a cash prize, and there's 7 that do not. So you can write it like this, 3 to 7. or 3 over 7. You have 3 that contain a cash prize versus 7 that do not. So this is odds, 3 to 7. So here we have odds against. This is the ratio of unfavorable outcomes versus favorable outcomes. So again, we have 10 hidden items. 3 contain a cash prize and the rest do not. 1 is chosen at random. What are the odds against winning a cash prize? So again, we want against. So this is unfavorable. This can be 7 versus favorable, 3, 7 to 3, or 7 over 3. All right, so that was odds against. All right, so now I want to go over some example ACT problems involving probability. So this one says a box contains 10 objects, 3 red, 5 blue, and 2 green. If each object is equally likely to be chosen, what is the probability that an object drawn from the box is blue? So we want to find probability. So this is number of favorable outcomes divided by the total number of outcomes. Okay, so favorable outcomes is the blue ones. So we have 5 blue. Then we want the total. We said there was 10 objects in there, so the total is 10. So here you want to put these in lowest terms, so 5 is divisible into both of these. So you have a 1 out of 2 chance drawing a blue one. This one reads, a purse is lost and returned to its owner. If the purse contains 9 $5 bills, 5 $10 bills, and 4 $20 bills, and 3 $100 bills, and the owner will randomly select one to reward to the returner, what is the probability that it'll be a $100 bill? So again, we will find probability, favorable outcomes. This would be the $100 bill. There's 3 of those. And how many bills altogether? 9 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3. That adds up to 21. Again, we want to put this in lowest terms. Each of these are divisible by 3, so 1 over 7. So the probability of choosing a $100 bill is 1 out of 7. This problem says 2 fair die are rolled simultaneously. What is the probability that they both turn up 6s on a 20th roll? Now this is a little tricky problem because they throw that 20th roll in there, but that actually does not matter. Since this is just a dice that you roll, what I rolled before doesn't affect what I roll on the next roll. So the probability of any of these numbers is not affected by what was rolled before. All right, so we got 2 events going on here, rolling 2 dice together. Now if we look at the first one, what's the probability of it getting a 6? So dice has 1 through 6 on it. So rolling a 6 is going to be 1 out of 6. And getting a 6 on the other one is also 1 over 6. If we have 2 events, we're going to multiply these 2 together. And that's going to give you 1 over 36. So you have a 1 out of 36 chance for them both turning up 6s. Again, we had 2 events, so we need to multiply the probability of each together. So this one says a box contains 12 objects. 5 are circles, 2 of them are red, 1 is blue, and 2 are green. And 7 are squares, 4 of them are red, 3 of them are blue. If one object is selected at random, what is the probability it is a square or a blue? So our keyword here is or. So remember, probability of A or B is equal to the probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of A and B. Both of them happening at the same time. Okay, so our first event is the probability of a square. So we have 7 squares out of the 12 total objects. So 7 over 12. Our second event is being blue. So we have 1 blue here, 3 blue there. So that's 4 out of the 12 objects. And then minus the probability of it being a square and blue. So we have squares, 3 of them are blue, so minus 3 over 12. We're just going to add the numerators. 7 plus 4 minus 3 will give you 8. And that stays over 12. Again, we need to reduce. 4 can go into each of these. So you get 2/3. Now, why do we need to subtract the 3/12? Because those 3 appeared in here, the same 3 appeared in that group and this group, so we don't want to double count them, so that's why we had to subtract one of the 3's. Okay, so the probability of choosing a square or a blue is 2/3. And this question says a bag contains 15 pens, 5 have black ink, 4 have blue ink, and 6 have red ink. If one pen is selected at random, what's the probability that is not black ink? Alright, so notice that the not is capitalized. Remind you that it's saying not black. Alright, so how many are not black? So we have the 4 blue and the 6 red. So that's 10. And our total number of choices is 15 pens. Again, we need to reduce this. 5 goes into both. So that becomes 2 over 3, or 2/3. So the probability of choosing a pen that does not have black ink is 2 out of 3, or 2/3. So this question asks, a magician asks an audience member to think of 2 different numbers between 1 and 10. What is the probability that those 2 numbers add up to 12? Alright, so let's first think about how many possible choices they have. So you have 10 numbers, 1 through 10, and you want to choose 2 of them. They have to be 2 different numbers. That sounds like a combination, which is basically 10 combination. We have groups of 2. You do that on the calculator, you get 45. So there's 45 possible outcomes. Now, how many variable outcomes? We want the ones that add up to 12. If they choose 2 and 10, that's 1. Do 3 and 9, 4 and 8, 5 and 7, and 6 and 6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 variable outcomes. So it's going to be 5 over 45. And that reduces down to 1 over 9. So probability that those 2 add up to 12 is 1 out of 9, or 1/9. This problem says a bag contains 12 colored marbles of the same size. 5 white, 3 blue, and 4 red. Which of the following expressions gives the probability of drawing at random and without replacement a white on the first draw, a blue on the second draw, and a white on the third draw? Now when we're dealing with without replacement, that means when we draw that marble, we're not going to put it back in. So that's going to affect the probability of the next event, because you have one less to choose from. On the first draw, you have all the marbles still on there. So on your first draw, you're going to have a white one. So we have 5 white out of 12. Okay, in your second draw, you're going to have one less marble overall. So you have 11. You have one less white one. But your second draw is going to be blue. So we have 3 blue to choose from out of 11. And on your third draw, another white one. Okay, so we remove one white one on the first draw. So there's only 4 of the white ones to choose from. And then after your 2 draws prior, you only have 10 left to choose from. So it'll be 5 12s times 3 11s times 4 10s. Answer choice D. This question says, on the game show Guess the Price, the contestant has to order 5 products from lowest price to highest price without seeing the actual price. If the contestant knows which one that is the highest price and guesses the order of the other 4 products, what is the probability that the contestant orders the 5 products correctly? Alright, so there's 5 products. You gotta put them in order from lowest price to highest price. And they already know the highest price one, so that's basically guaranteed there. Now you have 4 choices you need to fill in. What's the probability of getting those correct? Now, how many ways can you order 4 products in 4 places? Okay, so that's going to be a permutation for permutation 4, and you can do that on your calculator. That gives you 24. Now, only one of those permutations will be the correct order, so it's going to be 1 out of 24. So the probability of guessing the 5 products correctly would be 1 out of 24, or 1/24. Now you were able to eliminate the last one basically because you knew which one was the highest. So you need to order the remaining 4, and there's 24 different choices there, and only one of them is the correct choice. So I hope this video helped you understand ACT problems that deal with probability.